Hey, we are Dr. Shane and Liz Watt, and welcome to the Be Healthy Naturally podcast.
We are doing this podcast because we are trying to bring knowledge and education to create a new way of thinking about our health.
Knowledge is the key to live a happy, healthy life, and our goal is to help you live your best life.
Thank you for being on this journey with us, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Our guest today, Dr. Brett Earl, is a board-certified emergency physician with 16 years in emergency and trauma medicine and over a decade in functional medicine. He's served as a life flight and a SWAT tactical physician and is the founder of Foundational Medicine and Denali Specialty Clinic. After going through a serious health challenge himself, he dove deep into the research, rebuilt his health, and now helps others do the same. So thank you, Dr. Earl, for being on today.
Yes, welcome. We appreciate having you come on. So
wow.
I have just a lady that was in my chiropractic class when I was going through chiropractic school. She was a nurse prior to, and she had been an emergency room nurse for like 25 years before chiropractic school, right? It was so funny because the instructors would actually ask her questions while they were giving their lecture because she had seen so much stuff. So just 16 years of emergency medicine, holy cow, you've seen a boatload of lots of things.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and initially you're thinking, okay, what am I doing here? But the background is that you end up seeing so much because you have to talk OB with the obstetrician, pediatrics with the pediatrician, then all the way up to geriatrics, neurosurgery. The amount of information that has to be processed is immense. And most of the days it's not what you see, that it's run from one to the next to the next. There's often a little bit of time to sit and reflect and make sure you're not making any mistakes. But some days it's not. But I will tell you this, it gave me a background that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else. So I'm super grateful.
So what brought you into this? Like, why did you decide did you start out just as a regular doctor and then you found your way to this?
Right.
Or
Did you have your own practice after emergency medicine for a little while, or did you go straight into the functional side from emergency?
I went straight, I did a hybrid for a few years. I had actually joined a chiropractic physician who still to this day, one of the most fabulous clinicians I have ever met. But we just couldn't get together on the business side of things. And so I then joined a separate chiropractic clinic, a similar process, and eventually was approached by a gentleman who wanted to create his own clinic, it was a clinic called the FAR Clinic, and we did a combination of supplements, smoothies, nutrition, pulse electrical magnetic field, and this was really early on in the PEMF realm. We did heat therapy, cold therapies, and we started to combine these in a way that was really powerful. And during part of this time, I had purchased a barn, some land that was adjacent to my home in Morgan, and on that land was a barn, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was full of black mold. And you think black mold in Utah, that doesn't happen. Well, it just so happens that the gentleman who had built this barn had put a little room there, and I was a pretty avid weightlifter from playing college baseball and could run like crazy. Well, I put my weight room in that barn area, not knowing that it had the mold in it because he had actually painted over it. And then
we actually had that discussion today. We had earlier, one of our podcasts was the guy that has the dogs that sniff out the mold, and so that was one of our podcasts earlier.
Yeah. So and all the moisture for about a quarter acre drained under that barn, and I'm in there working out, just breathing in black mold, and within 9 months, I went from being able to bench 300 pounds to barely being able to get 125 pounds off my chest. And I saw the cardiologist, the pulmonologist, the infectious disease. I saw everyone. I was a doctor myself. And everyone just scratched their head and gave the proverbial, your labs are normal. We don't know what's going on. And in the meantime, I'm dying fast. At one juncture, I had a combination of some early liver compromise, not quite failure. My pancreas, I had a pancreatitis. I don't drink, but my lipase, which should have been less than 41, was 7,700.
Jeez.
My prostate was infected. My lungs were full of fungus. Bad brain fog. I had a cardiac arrhythmia called bigeminy. And at night, my heart rate would drop down to 30. This with also an oxygen level that was in the 80s. And I was sick. One juncture, a group of physicians and some collaboration estimated I had an 85% mortality. I would get winded walking across a room.
Wow.
And that's what got me started. I either had to, in fact, they got to the point they actually handed me Prozac and told me it was in my head.
In your head.
Yeah, and that's part of my dissolution that happens with Western medicine. I think it's great. I'm a product of it, but at the same time, everything comes at the end of we don't know what's
You're
going on.
a product of it in two ways, the good and the bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so I just started researching, fell in love with it, tried to join several clinics. Ultimately, just from a business standpoint, things didn't work out. So I went out on my own, and here we are.
So how did you come up with the name Denali? Because we've actually been to Denali up in Alaska.
Yeah, I was looking for a name, and was thinking about pinnacle or peak, and somebody had just mentioned, "Hey, Denali's the tallest peak in North America," and I was like, "I like it," and there we go.
Yeah, yeah. Have you been there?
I haven't yet. That is
okay.
Definitely
You got to go up there. You got to go there. So our son did tour guides up there in Alaska, and that was part of his tour was going into Denali and stuff. But yeah,
he stopped by. It's
a really pretty place. Oh yes. Yeah. He was one doing the filming.
Tell me about your name. He asked. He said, "Have you been there?" I was like, "Not yet, but it definitely has to happen."
Put that on your bucket list. It was awesome.
Yep.
So what is it that stops everyday person from actually getting true help?
Ooh. Wow. I think it really starts at the base of education and what we put out there from an education standpoint. We're taught that things come at the end of a pill. Success and health comes at the end of a pill. Success and health comes at the end of a surgery. And that was part of my disillusion with Western medicine is in the ER, I was seeing the complications of all of these things. And so I think it really comes down to education and who are the strong voices out there and letting them know that this is more of a compilation of issues rather than, just suddenly you have a diagnosis. And that's the other interesting thing about the psychology. The psychologists for the years have done studies and looked at the fact that us putting labels, diagnoses, on patients actually puts their healing psyche in the wrong direction. We need to be identifying those core triggers. And I think that's the other thing, people talk a lot about root source healing, and then they stop at inflammation. Wait, inflammation is it's part of the signs and signals.
Something caused that to happen.
What caused the inflammation? And so there's so much misinformation out there about what true root cause is. Something I call the 7 triggers. I can explain all the diseases on the planet with 7 triggers. It really has to get down to the fact there are no silver bullets. We have to come at this from multiple perspectives, including diagnostics. And then it's not going to happen overnight. And we've got to get that expectation into the mindset of the patient.
And I really think with the pill aspect of healing, that's what people have kind of been told, that just take this pill and then everything's going to be okay. And even with that, it doesn't always work, but it's like that's what we've been ingrained within our minds of, that's the healing process. Just take this pill and you're going to be okay.
And not just that though, it's also that people are basically being told on the commercials of the side effects, and it's normal. you know. And like there, I just saw in fact, I stopped Liz. She was walking past. I'm, Liz, look at this commercial. It was literally a guy just sharing the side effects of the drug, right? And a guy in the background was just sitting there eating popcorn like he was at the movie.
Like it's not a big deal.
It was the craziest commercial. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, they're like totally normalizing that. Yes, you're going to have these side effects, and it's okay because you're just going to be, you know, eating popcorn at a movie.
Yes, and not just that, they've normalized it, but they actually did psychological studies where they actually showed that the trust of the patient increased by them sharing all of those side effects, which is
which
crazy.
They were fighting hardcore not to have to do that in the beginning, right?
Right. And then how many times I've seen in the emergency department where half of the prescriptions that patients are on are to deal with the side effects of the initial prescriptions. It just is this snowball that really doesn't get to the end. And I would say I would actually ask your listeners to think about this and start paying attention to those pharmaceutical prescriptions and ads, because they don't talk about solving the problem or healing you. They say something very specific. Your disease can be managed.
Right.
That's awful.
All they do. Yeah, that's all they do.
Awful. They cover symptoms and they manage your disease. And I'm a big believer in the fact that the amazing miracle human body can heal itself in all phases, all stages of life, if we get rid of what is causing the problem. That's those 7 triggers. We give it what it needs and get out of the way, because there's so many times as well that in fact, I deal with patients all the time, and I've seen you, I know you do as well, where what else can I do? What else can I do? And I often say, it's not so much what we add to your program right now, it's what we need to take away. Let's introduce some rest and not push so hard that your mitochondria get fried, your membranes are blitzed, and your cells just aren't functioning. And that's, wow. I mean, your disease can be managed. Yay!
Yeah, I know. And that's what all pharmaceutical, I call it the pharmaceutical cartel. That's exactly what they do, right? That's all they do is it's about, and their best patient is the one that has to be on it for life.
Yes. And that was their rub against antibiotics, is it actually fixed the problem. And so they were looking to, and there's other issues we know with antibiotics, microbiome, all these other pieces now, but it fixed the problem. And so that part of their model was just that. It was to look at prescriptions that people needed to be on chronically, and we're here.
So, question: how did you? So, it all went back to the mold thing for you, which is kind of an interesting thing that happened to you after you moved into that house and worked out in the barn. How did you figure that out?
Wow. And I will say this, there were a lot of other factors. I mean, I've got chronic Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus and, all these other factors. The fungus was just the piece that really...
That kind of put it all together and it made it all blow up.
My nutrition wasn't great because, frankly, medical doctors get about this much nutrition. I'm sorry, about this much nutrition. I mean, it's about this much. I can't quite get it minuscule enough. And so my nutrition wasn't great, all those different pieces that I was told, oh, that's okay because we'll just cover it up with symptoms. But ultimately, the fungal was that final piece that kind of tipped everything over the barrier. This
kind of send it into chaos. Yeah. Send your body into chaos.
I got trained on doing prolozone injections, and at my office we now do Renuo 2 because we're 4 major advancements from prolozone. But I got trained on that by a gentleman who was trying to help me, that initial chiropractor. And then he even said to me, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to go to this conference. And it was my first conference on functional medicine. And I was sitting in the audience, and it was the last day. It'd be too poetic if it was the last meeting, or last speaker the last day. But I got there, and the gentleman got up. He gave his speech on functional cardiology, and I knew it wasn't my heart at that time. But at the end, he said, I've got 15 minutes. You're a captive audience. I love fungal infections. And it was click, click, click. And it was weird. I almost saw in my mind's eye that weight room and I saw black mold growing up the sides and filled all the carpet. And you can't be serious. And I actually went back in that room because I had avoided it for years. Something told me I needed to stay out of that room. And I went back in that room, and there it was, black mold growing up the sides. And mold testing still isn't great from a lab standpoint. We use a bioresonance device, but I started myself on a prescriptive antifungal. I didn't know any better. And in 3 days, I felt better than I had in 10 years. So I knew what I had. I knew where I got it. I knew prescriptions were going to help me feel better, but not cure the issues. And so I got busy. And at one juncture, I had so much oregano oil in me, I smelt more like the Olive Garden than the Olive Garden did. I was nebulizing things.
So you started to take, when you're learning about the functional part of it, you started to take oregano oil.
Yeah, because oregano is a good antibacterial, antifungal, everything. Yeah.
Yep, and I nebulized with a certain quantity of hydrogen peroxide on a routine basis. Cleaned up my lungs. I was, my lungs. I was so sick, really sick.
Can you I know you'd mentioned this, I think in your presentation or something about the triangle of healing. What is that?
Yeah, this isn't anything new. It's just something I put try with a TRY, so it's triangle with a Y instead of that initial I, because I think it's important that we try. And it's, again, not anything new, but it's a combination of something chemical, something mechanical, and something energetic. And if you combine those, the difference is exponential healing. And how many times do we see, patient A goes to a certain practitioner and they get, adjustments, they get this, but they get, ultrasound, or the other does shockwave, or they go to, Dr. C and he does light therapies, etc. And about 40 to 60% of them get better. And that other 40% that don't, the reason is they're not receptive to that type of medicine. That's not where their deficit is. And so I'm looking at combining those in a very meaningful and structured way, so that even if you're not receptive, let's say, to the energy healing at that time, we're attacking the chemistry until you build up that ability. And we're making sure you're getting the proper mechanics, the right, either whether that's, kinetics, kinesiology, or yoga, or, those different pieces, so that you're combining those therapies and getting the benefits of all of the healing.
It is amazing that our bodies are actually designed to heal itself. If we just, and I always say that, designed to heal itself, we just need to find out, what is that perfect environment for it to be able to heal. Because once we find that, things start to change in our bodies, it knows how to respond. It knows what to do, but we just infiltrate it with so much with it.
What's blocking it? What do you need to do to unblock it, basically?
Yep. Everything is so much about flow of energy.
So you had mentioned something about, you said something about the 7 something for disease or something like that. Is that a quick thing to go over, or is that a whole podcast in itself?
Well, a little bit of both. I'm actually on chapter 5 of the book that's, the 7 triggers of all disease. But
Is this a book you're writing?
Uh-huh.
Is this a book you're reading or writing?
Writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's going to be about 15 chapters, so I have a little bit of work to go. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. So congenital, those are things that you're born with. And, we think of congenital like Down syndrome or cystic fibrosis, where you're missing a genetic SNP or have a change in your genes. But now they're finding that, even these sub-SNPs, these little SNPs that make us more predisposed to certain diseases. So congenital. The next is toxins. And toxins can range anything from, again, chemistry to, even prescriptions. Water can be toxic if it's given in excess. Anything in excess, and or anything that's directly, toxic. The next is, make sure I get my pieces all right. The next is physical trauma. So car accidents, falls, fractures, those type of things. The next is
sports injuries.
Yep. Yep. And it can even, and physical trauma can also be osteoarthritis or overuse syndromes as well. So that's more of a mechanical kind of scenario. The next is infections, and those are the big four. So the chronic, the acute, certainly infections play a big role, but anything that sits in your body and disrupts it from the core level, that's where our focus is. So the chronic viruses, most of those are in the herpes family. There are 8 of them. The fungi, I know fungi really well. They're not very fun.
Well, you also mentioned that you had chronic Epstein-Barr, right, as well, right?
Yeah. And then parasites and then bacteria. So that's the infection. Poor nutrition, huge. If you're not getting the nutrients in that you need, you're not going to be able to get the healing and the recovery that you need out. Stress. Now, stress can come from a lot of different sources. Physical trauma does, infection does. And I addressed that during the stress sequence, but really this has to do with emotional stress and the fact that you can often get the same physiologic response of things that you put in your head that you do from actually going through the other trauma as well. Let's see.
Well, we just talked about that too. It's like, every time you have these emotions, that chemicals are being dumped into your system.
Yes. Your body can't tell the difference. And sorry, the last one is energy. And this one, we ignore a lot, but, electromagnetic fields are all around us. And ultimately, we're energy beings. We think we're solid, but if you get down to the atomic level, we're actually 2% solid matter. And that's even in question, frankly. We're actually all energy. And so really addressing that is, I think, going to be the future of medicine as well. There you go. There's the 7.
No, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to know if you wanted to share that. So yeah, so you're writing a book on that. The goal of the end date is when?
About 5 years ago.
We get that.
I was wondering if that was the case. Yeah.
Yeah, we understand that. It took me 2 years to write my book, longer than I anticipated, but So when you're dealing with patients, can you kind of talk to us, like if somebody wants to come in and see you, like where is it you start?
What's your basic workup or kind of thing? Or is that very much dependent on what's going on?
It is dependent to some degree, and I do have some patients who come in and say, "Oh, can we just test this or just test that?" Absolutely. But I have a process I call a total 360 diagnostics, where we do a history, an extensive history. My intake is, people often cringe at this, but it's 58 pages long. And
yeah, that is pretty big.
yeah, but it's all bullet point. It goes relatively quickly, but I want to know what's going on. So an intake, a physical examination. Strangely, so many providers out there don't actually touch their patients. And there's so much you can tell by a physical examination. Obviously, labs, blood, urine, stool testing. We have a bioresonance scanner, and there's others that I'm looking at, so I'm just going to say bioresonance. And that device is really cool. It measures the energy output from all kinds of different things. The device I have can test for 120,000 different molecules in your body, and give us a readout from that. And then obviously, if we need any imaging, we look at MRIs, X-rays, ultrasounds. I mean, we can access all of the imaging that we need. And then ultimately, we put all that together on a sheet that has their 7 triggers, what's really making things flare. And I'm working on a concept called the Discovery Continuum, where that'll be graphic, and we will have okay, you are this sick, and this is our process for getting you well.
Yeah, that's a hard thing with functional, right? There's so many rabbit holes that you can go down. There's so many things that you have to address, because those are things that aren't being addressed. It's not just, oh, you have a cold, here, take this. Oh, you have this, take this, right? I mean, you have to go through the whole process. So for functional doctors that do functional, I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that goes into that, and sometimes it's just guesswork too, right? Sometimes it's like, well, let's try this, see if this changes. If not, then we'll go to this, because we are playing that game of what your body needs, and it's impossible to know 100% all the time.
Yes, and that is actually part of the diagnostic process that I often tell patients is we need to start this process and let's see in a month, 3 months, how your body is responding and give it time for the nutrients to get in, it to change the DNA, start activating the proteins that have been missing. I mean, there's this whole cascade that needs to happen before we start to say, well, that didn't work, rather than, and that's where Western medicine just covers up the symptoms and it's, oh, and I was able to go to Johnny's game. But you haven't fixed the problem. And but I also am a big believer in the fact that, you know, you talked about a lot of complications and a lot that the little idiosyncrasies, but it's amazing how much, because I start off treating systems, body systems as a whole, and that way we cover up. No, we help the body re-establish a system health and then overall health, rather than just saying let's spot treat your SNP or let's spot treat this. And we find that a lot of that specificity isn't needed because the innate intelligence of the body will take off and run.
So as part of, you've mentioned SNP a couple of times. So as part of the stuff you do you do the genetic testing?
We have it available for patients who are interested. Yes.
And for people that may not know what we're talking about, it's like the MTHFR. That is a genetic test, you know, kind
Yes.
of thing. But there's a whole bunch of them out there that people aren't as familiar with unless you've gone down that rabbit hole, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down as well.
Yeah, and epigenetics and what's turning on and off the genes. I think that's one of the other pieces that people don't understand about the chronic viruses, fungus, and parasites is the fact that they'll actually get in and turn off gene sequences so that they're not expressed. And cleaning that up is a big piece of returning your health.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So be healthy is all about education and helping people to learn how to take care of themselves and find the answers that they need. Can you tell our audience just what are some things that people can do at home to be able to help with themselves? Of course, if you is a huge option for somebody to come and see, but what are just some of these things that they can do within their own home to be able to improve their health and have better success with them and their family?
Well, first, start balancing out, you know, your diet. One of the key things that's coming out in research, and we're seeing it quite a bit, is the fact that we need a balance between omega-3s and omega-6s. And right now, the standard American diet, also called the SAD diet, is anywhere from 20 to 1 omega-6 oils. Well, your body, if you look at its construction, it's actually anywhere from 60 to 70% fat, even as high as 80% fat. And so if you're not getting healthy fats into your system and you're not balancing out the omega-6s and omega-3s, it's crazy. We actually did some research on that and found if you go out to your typical restaurant meal, you need to take 17 fish oil tablets to balance out the typical exposure from seed oils and frankenfats that you get from a standard restaurant meal. So that's big. I'm a big believer.
Thanks for ruining the restaurant experience.
I thought my one was okay.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Abergene Kitchen. Sorry, they have no idea, but my goodness, I've researched them out. That is some seriously clean cooking going on over there. They do an amazing job. And Vessel is not far behind. Sorry, yeah. To continue on to answer your question, I'm a big believer in, you know, multivitamins, vitamin D, vitamin C, and obviously we've talked about the fish oil and getting those core basics into your system so that your body has at least a foundation to really build on. But fats are amazing. I mean, you get healthy fats into your system. Healthy fats do not make you fat. Healthy fats actually really help your body recover. I mean, these short chain fatty acids and the medium chain fatty acids are actually anti-inflammatory, and the list goes on and on. We have to look at really maximizing our healthy fat intake.
Yeah, that's something I think is very much missed for sure. And even I, as a practitioner, you just get going throughout your day, and you just don't get enough of the good stuff in.
Yep.
So it looks like you are going to offer something to our audience. It's a Mother's Day special.
Yes. Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I'm excited about this because I have an absolutely amazing mother. Seriously, something else. And so as we were thinking that one way to make this fun is those that listen to this podcast, if you'll call in and mention to us, one, you listen to the podcast, but then you need to tell us what you love most about your mother in, 3 minutes or less. If you take up and my mom this, I mean, I know we could all do that, but
Yes.
tell us what's amazing about your mother, and you can come in and get an IV for 20% off.
Nice,
Oh,
nice.
I love it.
Now, this probably won't be out before Mother's Day, but this will last throughout. It doesn't have to be on Mother's Day. It has to be just anything. Just say something nice about your mother and how
Yep.
they affected you.
Yep.
That's awesome.
We'll
That's a great little thing. And you'll definitely know it's come from here, right?
We'll probably end that offer by, say the end of June, so it's not indefinite. But certainly, if you call from here until the end of June, we will get you in. And we want people to experience our IVs. I broke down our IVs. They're 3 to 5 times stronger. They're osmotically balanced, so they're ready to be taken up by the cells. I actually have components in there that decrease the reaction from the injection sites, and so you don't get the typical scarring. It's just they're really cool, and yeah, we would love for people to come in and experience that.
Well, I'll tell you what, our kids like to do the plasma donation, but they surely got a scar from that. When you say that it reduces the scarring, I'm like, that's what I would like to do.
We've actually had patients come in that have gotten IVs elsewhere and have had significant scarring, and it actually can dissolve based on what we do because it's balanced. And it's not causing as much trauma and drama to the tissue as the IV goes in.
Nice. Well, it's definitely like if you look at the way you practice now to 10 years ago when you were how long have you been practicing like this? Has it been 10, 15 years?
I started studying this in probably about 2010, 2009.
Okay. So about 15 years. Could you before that, could you ever seen like the stuff you're doing now? That wasn't even the thought, even close to a thought process, huh?
I'm gonna go one step further, and this is the ultimate embarrassment for me.
You thought we were all kooks, huh?
I was like, what are you thinking? The science is right here, and look at this double-blinded study. I was the worst. I mean, I grew up with a good chiropractor, so I at least had an open mind to some of these pieces, and a chiropractor saved my back in medical school, so I was still at least open-minded. But my goodness, people would come in, but near the end, even of my ER career, I was already starting a pretty decent transition, and moms would come in on essential oils and all these other pieces, and I'd sit down and I'd say, okay, this is how you mix and match this, and they'd call back in, can we schedule an appointment with Dr. Earl? It's not the way it works in the ER.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Oh my goodness. And to think I would be talking about energy medicine, and I'm not talking about the type of energy that you go in, and there are some amazing energy healers, them as people, and I accept that. But now this new field where we're doing pulse electromagnetic field, very specific frequencies from light therapy and it is just going to be amazing.
I know it's just opening up even more and more for sure. I mean, there's just so many crazy things, and I mean, that's actually one of the coolest things about our conference, right? Is there's just so many vendors doing so many different things, and they all can be beneficial. They all can work. That's the thing that's crazy about it. Yeah.
It's about supporting your body, and there's a lot of different ways to support your body out there.
No doubt about it. Yeah. And so I got to tell you, I was the worst at that. So to think I'd be here having this podcast and this conversation with you, I'd be
right.
Yeah,
well, we're glad you came to the light.
That's right. like our kind of our slogan is, our goal is to make alternative healthcare the standard, not just the alternative, right?
Yep. I tell people I'm a recovering allopath, so I don't know where that goes. But
Yeah, a recovering elephant. That's
Well, it's so
awesome.
nice having you on today to be able to, I know that Shane had a whole practice where before he was just doing chiropractic care, and then he opened it up to functional health, and it was like everything changed for his patients, and he was able to help so many different people. And like me, I was on a path of, even though I thought I was living this holistic lifestyle, I'm married to a chiropractor, I started going down a path of not being well, and we couldn't figure it out. And it was like getting back to those basics of natural health. And I had to first heal my gut with just fermented vegetables. I mean, that was just the beginning part, and of course I ended up doing more. But if we could just get to what it is that's in our body, that the root cause of these things. And at that moment it was like I needed to heal parts of my gut so that the rest of my systems could take over and to start healing. But doing this functional help really changes people's lives, and he's seen it in his practice, and I've experienced it in my own personal life.
And I'm with you there. My life is different because I practice what I preach. And, having someone or a family member who you as the practitioner is fighting for, in your case, your husband fighting for you, but that makes all the difference in your ability to have empathy, compassion, and ultimately connection with the patient. It's a big deal.
Yeah, especially for you, because your whole life changed because of what was happening, and you tried the standard medical stuff, right? And it just wasn't being found. It was like you said. Well, at one point they just said, it's in your head. You need to just take Prozac, and that's kind of the standard answer if the doctors can't help them, which is sad. Instead of saying, hey, I don't know what's going on, try something different. They a lot of them don't have that thought process. There is other things out there, and thank goodness for you. This has happened, because in reality, it sucked while you were going through it. But if you think about it, what a blessing it is now, because now you're helping how many other people that would not have had that chance or not be able to be helped because of what happened with you.
And I would say, one of the pieces too that's just critical, certainly talked about some things people can do at home, but the biggest advice I could give anyone is just keep trying. You have to keep trying. You've got to open up the next door. You've got to look at the next, whatever it is. Just please keep trying. Don't give up. I mean, that's life has its setbacks. Meet them head on and get to work, because that's your greatest and most powerful tool.
And that's a perfect way to end on this. We so much appreciate you coming on and participating with us in our podcast, but also for the work that you're doing. So kind of, if you can end, just kind of where can people find you, and how can they get a hold of you if they have questions, or if they want to do this special, or just other things that they might be interested in, where you're located, things of that nature.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super appreciative of you guys having me on. Really, thank you so much. So the website is denalispecialtyclinic.com. The phone number is 801-389-4697. And the email is hello@denalispecialtyclinic.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Earl, for being on and educating us and the importance of, just getting to the root cause of what's going on. And you have been a perfect example that your life can change once you do that. So thank you.
And just to step back a little bit, your office is in Bountiful, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, right across from Lakeview Hospital. Easy to find.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Your health journey is between you and your healthcare providers.
So remember, this podcast is for educational purposes only.
To stay up to date, visit us at BeHealthyUtah.com.
And please subscribe to our newsletter, where we give additional health information, health tips, as well as recipes.
Thank you to our 2026 sponsors.
We truly could not do this without them.